If it wasn't for mental illness and extreme marketing dollars attacking our psyche every day, would there be any use for nutrition coaches? And how do we start creating a world in which we're living healthier, more intentional lives with teaching kids in schools how to do it? What's up, Active Lifers? Welcome back to the Active Life Podcast. I'm Dr. Sean Pastuch. I'm your host on my podcast. Today is my friend, Jim Hallinan. He is one of the hosts of The Other Side. What is it called? The Other Side Lifestyle.
Other Side Lifestyle.
I was going to say The Other Side of Fitness, but it's The Other Side Lifestyle podcast with my other friend, Aaron Gregorian. And he is a part-time nutrition coach and a full-time phys ed teacher who I have a lot of respect for because he teaches people how to think so that they can make decisions for themselves and telling them instead of telling them exactly what to think. Jesus Christ, I am out of words. Just listen to the podcast, rate it and review it. Have a good time. It's going to be a good one. One of the things that I thought was cool was you decided to drive out here. Was it 2.5 hours?
It was a little bit less, but yeah, 2:15, 2:20.
And just for a hang. Like you brought it up when we were sitting in my kitchen, and I want to go into it because I think it's something that I also appreciate in our relationship, which is the idea that like there's nothing expected. I don't expect you to launch my career, introduce me to people who are going to launch my career.
Because I can't. I'm nobody.
All right, let's turn that. But and you're not looking for that from me.
Yeah.
I have nothing to sell to you. You have nothing to sell to me. I don't have a relationship to leverage with you. You don't have a relationship to leverage with me. It's just we connected first in the online world. I was a guest on your podcast. Then we connected in person at the Silverback Summit in, what was it, November?
Yeah, November.
And then we've been talking a lot since, and now you're here.
Yeah.
I find that really valuable because in the world that we live in, it's really difficult to sort through people who want to be your friend so that they can get something as compared to people who just are genuinely interested in being a friend.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. It's in this space. I mean, I'm sure it's any space really of business, but in this space, we see that a lot. You can almost tell sometimes you meet somebody, like they're looking at you like, you trying to get something from me? Mm-hmm. Type of a thing. I never felt that way with you, especially since Austin. We just clicked and broke bread together.
We did break bread together.
And,
I got food.
like every meal.
I got food poisoning.
Did you?
Yeah, I didn't tell you that. Stubbs Barbecue.
Stubbs did?
Yes.
There's only so much you can do with meat.
Yeah, but apparently okra is different.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Because you did tell me that.
I'm fairly confident. Like I took a bite of the fried okra. For people who aren't listening, I'd still recommend Stubbs Barbecue. Great smoke on the brisket, but don't do the okra, or at least not the day I was there. So you're probably safe. I had that first bite and I was like, something's off. And then I was like, maybe it was just because I had a bad bite. Second bite, I'm like, and then immediately my stomach started doing like that little gargle thing.
That's quick.
It was quick. It was really quick. And I just brushed it off. Like it was nothing because I was able to get past that. But then I felt unsettled for a little bit. I remember being in the airport and I love the Delta Lounge. Love the Delta Lounge. It's like I don't know. I feel like a fucking bougie little, I don't know.
Yeah. Is it a lot nicer than the Admiral's Lounge?
I don't know the Admiral's Lounge.
I like the Admiral's Lounge. Some are nicer than others.
I've never been in the Admiral's Lounge.
Yeah, I'm an Admiral's Lounge guy, but Delta sounds like it's probably nicer.
It's nicer than sitting in the seats outside of your plane.
Yeah.
For sure. And I loved like trying all the food. And I was like, I don't want any food. Like, uh-oh. And I started drinking coffee. I'm like, I don't want this coffee. And I just started getting like spiraled to, I'm going to go to sleep until it's time to get on this airplane.
Yeah, because we were messing. You love farting on planes.
No, I asked you, do you fart on planes? Because like that one especially, I was like, whatever.
For the record, out of nowhere, I get a message from Sean saying, do you fart on planes?
Well, anyone who travels
and I answered honestly, I was like, I try not to. Like, I don't want to.
Right.
If it happens to come out, I try to go to the bathroom to do it.
Sure. Yeah. So whenever I fly, I get gassy. And I try not to.
It's the nerves? Do you get nerves?
Maybe.
Is it once you're up in the air, or is it even beforehand?
It's up.
Okay.
It's once we're up.
It could be a atmosphere thing.
It could be. The first 30 seconds to a minute of flights are nerve-wracking for me. I don't like flying. Don't like it. I'm like, if something's going to go wrong, it's probably going to be in the first minute. I made that up. But no, the gas comes on in the middle of the flight. And then I'm like, what am I supposed to do? How many times am I supposed to go to the bathroom?
awkwardly as many times as possible.
Yeah, as many
just
times.
to make, especially if you have a window seat, just so that the person next to you is super frustrated.
Yeah.
I think that's a good strategy.
I actually had a great conversation on my last flight home with the guy in the window seat.
Do you pick aisle?
Always.
Always aisle.
Aisle as close to the front of the plane as possible.
Yeah, if I'm first class, don't pick the front row.
I haven't flown first class yet.
Yeah, so I never pick the front row. So when you do fly first class, don't pick the front row because there's nothing in front of you to put your bag.
Okay.
So you have to put your bag. So always second row or back.
I always put my bag overhead. I don't want anything on the ground in front of me.
Why?
Legroom.
You're that tall? Yeah, really?
I'm not that tall. I just don't want to put my feet into something.
Put your feet like next to the bag?
No, I
Straddle
don't
the
want
bag?
constraint. What do I need in my bag? That's so
I don't
important.
know. I just like knowing I have easy access to it.
I take everything. I take all the headphones and all the adapters out of the bag, and then the bag goes overhead. And the only reason I even carry the bag on is so that I can have a change of clothes if I bring luggage.
Yourself.
Yeah. And actually, the real reason is because I don't want to check it to get it at the line, like at the luggage claim, and I pack light.
Yeah, I just do the carry-on.
That's it.
And then a backpack.
The backpack is my carry-on.
Yeah, no, I do
Your handbag comes with you?
my handbag comes with it. I say backpack, but we all know it's
Listen, it's 2023, 2024 when this comes out.
I'm progressive.
It's not a handbag, it's a satchel.
It is.
Yeah.
Correct. That's how I like it.
Especially if it's leather.
Then it's legit.
Yeah.
And only one strap. Then you can choose the crossbody it.
2 straps is college.
Yeah. I'm not in 21 Jump Street.
No.
The new version, the double strap and the single strap. So you had a good conversation with the window guy.
Yes. So the guy. So interesting. Here's the thing, right? One of my thoughts right now is like the government. Let's go crazy for a second. The government induced mental illness or accelerated mental illness during COVID. That's my belief set. Here we go. This is now going to be flagged on Spotify.
I'm all about this type of topic. Yeah.
So I just think there were people who were already simmering. They were 11 degrees. 212 is boiling. They were living at 211 degrees of anxiety daily. And then COVID hits. And they just went to 212 and they're boiling.
Do you think it's a purposeful thing, or do you think it was just inadvertently because of the regulations and the shutdowns that ended up happening, or do you think it's like,
I think
let's get these people boiling?
So my thought is, and if your mic keeps dragging down because it looks like it might be, you can just twist the knob and lift it back up and tighten it and all that kind of good stuff. I don't know why that keeps doing that. But earn your keep is what I'm saying.
You don't have people for this?
I do have people for
really
this, but they're
budget.
on vacation this week. I maybe I'm naive, but I genuinely believe that most people are good and want to do good. And then they find themselves in a situation and pride gets in the way. Like, I think our government probably believed this was a big, dangerous thing that we have to be really careful of because we don't know where it's going to go, even if we know exactly where it came from, and we don't want to talk about that. And then what I think happens is it's like, well, now they're playing the game of, if I say that, do I lose credibility about everything I said before, and then do we not actually have the ability to help anybody? Mm-hmm. And so it's like, no, let's just double down. Yeah, it's definitely sagging on you. Yeah. Maybe tighten it like a man.
That's sweaty hands. You're making me nervous.
So I think at that point, it's just the incentives line up to not be totally honest.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a genuine belief that we're going to be able to keep people safer if we're not honest with them.
Yeah. And then it's also, if we don't do anything, are we more in trouble?
Right.
Kind of a thing.
Listen, I was at the school board meetings during that time, and I was the guy who would tell people, do not sit next to me. I'm not on your team. Like, you guys are on 2 legitimately different teams. And I'm not, by the way, I'm not riding the fence in the middle either. I don't want our kids wearing masks in school. I definitely don't want to vaccinate my kids. And I can understand the position that the school board is in right now, where they don't want us to yell at them and tell them that they don't care about our kids and they're trying to kill them.
Yeah. And
those people over there think that you guys just want everybody to die because you're not wearing 7 masks. And
yeah, this was something that I had to have conversations
as a teacher.
And I'm not vaccinated. I went to a board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke about stuff. I got called into a meeting because I'm a teacher.
After?
I'm a teacher in the community, a parent in the community, a business owner in the community, and obviously a resident.
Well, did you get called in for a scolding, or did you get called into?
I got called in because I made, I forget the word, disparaging remarks about the food service department, because I said there's a bunch of things that I wanted to say. I ended up not saying everything, but the one thing was, we know that the number one cause of issues of death or hospitalization is due to obesity. So what does our school district plan on changing with the food offerings? Because it's garbage. And I had posted a few years ago going off a rant about the breakfast offering that the school is so proud to offer, because studies show a healthy breakfast enhances the academic performance of students. And then the offering is French toast sticks, Pop-Tarts, cinnamon rolls. Well, that's not a healthy breakfast that would enhance.
Doesn't cinnamon improve the processing of sugar?
I think it cures diabetes if you eat enough of it. In one spoon, actually, go home, get a tablespoon of it. A tablespoon of it.
Dry scoop it.
It's so good it cures type 1 diabetes, actually. But yeah, I'd said that and said something about anxiety at that point a week before the CDC or the WHO or whoever came out saying that the number 2 reason was stress and anxiety.
Sorry, I'm smiling because I was just thinking WNBA was
equal pay. The number 2 is anxiety and stress related disorders was the number 2 cause for hospitalization and everything. I brought that up. So what are we going to do to help reduce that? Even though we're masking children, creating more anxiety. I don't know if I said that part about creating more because of the masking, but I implied it. And I got called into a meeting, and I had a good relationship with the superintendent, but they didn't like me getting up and asking these questions. I was known as like the guy who didn't get vaccinated. I was like applauded after the stuff I did say. The one thing I do wish I said was, because one of the regulations was if you're not vaccinated, you had to be tested every week. But if you were vaccinated, you did not have to be tested.
Even though you can still carry and transfer.
Correct. I mentioned that part in something, but you could have got your shots a year ago, and now you don't need a booster to continue on that track of not being tested. So what I wanted to say was, is there a way I can make sure that my child has an unvaccinated teacher so I know that they're at least being safe by being tested every week? I wanted to say that, but I did not want to be like a sarcastic ass in this thing. But I totally forget. On a side tangent about, you were talking about not wanting them to be masked and going to a board.
Well, the point is, like, we were talking about, did the government induce mental illness on purpose?
Yeah.
And the answer was no. I think they were just genuinely presented with a set of conditions, and then maybe there was somebody or some bodies at the top who had interest, financial interest, power interest. But I think, genuinely speaking, people involved in solving whatever problems we have are trying to solve the problems. They just may not be playing with a deck that allows them to do it.
And then, like, didn't want to pivot.
Well, because now...
from that. Like, but again... We said this, we can't change, even though everything's coming out.
Right.
This is not the case. This is not...
Right.
And they just double down on it all.
That's the hard thing. That's the hard thing. Harder than holding that microphone for the entire interview.
Highly disappointed. Highly disappointed.
I apologize for your experience here.
It feels comfortable in my hand, though.
That's good.
It's the shape.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't think it was on purpose, and I think it happened. And I don't think anybody really cares to back off of it, because now you have your red lines, blue lines, and all that kind of stuff. And you can't start letting people vote for somebody else. God forbid you should tell the truth.
Go
ahead.
I remember now. The conversation of, and it goes back to you saying like that we're all good people. My mother on the opposite side of the spectrum.
I mean, she thinks everyone's terrible.
No, that everybody should have been vaccinated. You're awful if you didn't.
Right.
You don't care about people. Kind of what you said, people on that side of the room, they think they want to kill everybody because they're not, whatever. And I'm like, everybody's coming at this with good intentions. I think it's important that we understand this in these conversations. You want everybody to get vaccinated because you want to help people.
Yes.
I don't want to get vaccinated because I don't want to risk the possible injury of this. This has not been studied the way other things were before. And then she loved to send me, what about this vaccine? And I'm like, well, that was taken off the shelf 10 years later because of all the problems it was causing and whatever. I go, my intention is to also help people. It's just from a different perspective.
Right. We want the same end.
We want the same end, so it's interesting. I don't know how many of those conversations people actually had. To say, I'm coming from a good place. You're also coming from a good place. It's just two different perspectives. Neither one of us have ill intentions.
Well, the only people I want to be around are the ones who are attacking things from that perspective.
Yeah.
Because, one of the things that I like to hold on to is everybody's trying their best.
Yeah.
It's the easiest way for me to look at people who I would otherwise want to just eviscerate, and instead say, they're trying their best.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to do better. And you're happy that they're at least trying their best and that they're interested. If they weren't interested, you'd rather that than apathy.
Yeah.
So I'm there for that. So I get on the plane and this guy sits down next to me. He's got a mask on. And the first thing that comes up for me is it's a cloth mask. All of the data, when that was going on, indicated that cloth masks were ineffective. Even, what's his name? Sanjay Gupta? Is that the guy's name who had to come out and say
CNN?
it? Yeah, whoever he is.
Yeah.
Whatever his name is. Vivek Ramaswamy. I don't know. The guy, the fucking neurosurgeon on CNN.
Oh yeah. I was thinking of the CNN guy that Rogan had on that he.
Yeah, that's him.
Okay.
What's that guy's name?
I think you said it the first time.
Sanjay Gupta?
Yeah, or is that some kind of a guru?
I don't know. This is how people get in trouble.
Yes.
By the way. So I'm not going to keep on trying to figure out.
I'm not going to say
names.
how this sounds right now.
Right. Anyway, even he came out and was like, don't wear cloth masks. They don't work. Don't wear a bandana. They don't work. So the first thing I'm thinking is you're a smart person sitting next to me on the plane. I can tell you're a smart person because we got into conversation. Cloth masks don't do anything and you're wearing it anyway. And we got into the conversation that we're getting into is about he wants to be healthier. It had nothing to do. I'm watching it.
I'm watching it
slowly
lower.
sag.
Yeah.
Cleary, we need to fix this. We're having conversation about his health, about his nutrition, about his exercise. And he's like, this Navy SEAL told me I need to only eat red meat. The government is conspiring against me. I'm like, it's a little extreme. I understand why he's saying it, but it's probably hyperbolic. And he's like, that's what I was thinking. And so I gave him the simplest advice about look, just start absurdly small. Start with just basic exercise for 5 minutes a day so that you become a guy who does something for 5 minutes a day. Try to eat foods that are one ingredient as much as you can. I'm not talking about your seasonings. And then just see where that takes you and build from there. Find people around you who you trust and then just allow them to be your guides without be cynical, but don't look for other resources. Bring questions to them and let them be your guide because everyone is right in some way, right? So we're having this really good conversation and he's thanking me profusely for how reasonable I've been. And I'm like, do I ask?
About the mask?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's going back and forth in my head. And he says to me, he's like, it looks like you want to ask me a question. I said, I do. And I'm not sure how I want to ask it. And I'm like, give me a second. I want to think about how to ask it. And he goes, let me help you. It's completely illogical. I know it's not doing anything for me. I just hear people coughing and it makes me feel safe. So I put the mask on. Yeah. And then he took it off.
At least he can admit it.
But I was like, whoa, that was fucking A, really cool. B, scary. This guy has cognitive.
He saw the judgment in your eyes that whole time.
He must have.
He has.
He's like this guy's just helping me until he can swoop in with that question. But what was interesting, he has cognitive dissonance to his own beliefs.
Yeah.
It was so crazy.
Yeah.
That's the mental illness I'm talking about.
It's nuts.
This guy lives terrified now.
The arrows.
Mm-hmm.
Even that. I'm thinking in the schools and the grocery stores, our school for a year, you can only walk one way in the halls.
Right.
So if your classroom was to the right, one door, you could potentially have to go out and go left, walk around the entire building.
Really?
Yes. In my head, from a common sense perspective, aren't you better off passing someone than walking next to them for 5 minutes?
The whole time.
It's just even those little things that it just generated so much fear for people that it did create this craziness.
That's so wild. I never thought of it from that. Like the time if we're both walking north the whole time, we're next to each other the whole time.
The whole time.
Oh, man.
Like you could have had half the students just passing you.
Mm-hmm.
Split second.
Mm-hmm.
But no, we're going to all walk together. The same thing in the stores, all that stuff. It was wild. And people haven't recovered.
No, they haven't.
There's still a drastic fear
Mm-hmm.
of everything. And even with you're sick and you're testing yourself for COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Mm-hmm.
There's such an ingrained fear after 3 years. You might have COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And then what? You
Right.
sit at home until you feel better.
And then you go back into the real world.
Why are we doing this?
I'll say this. One positive thing I think came from that is people used to go to work sick because it was like I don't know.
Badge
That's
of
what I
honor.
do. I come to work when I'm sick. And then everybody else gets sick. And it's like, couldn't you just stay home
Yeah.
for a day?
Yeah, but now it's, I don't have COVID.
That's true. That's true. It's just the
You
flu.
should find out if you have COVID. No, I tested twice. I don't have it. Okay, then it's fine.
Right.
Come around me sick. That's the part that I'm not getting. Like,
Is that what's happening?
absolutely. I hear it all the time.
It's wild.
You should test if you have COVID. If you have COVID, you shouldn't come over. Okay. I'll just hack on you without COVID.
Right.
I'll non-COVID cough all over your family. That's like I don't get it. I don't get it. That's the part that cognitive dissonance is very strong right now in that specific topic. But then we see it in the same thing with nutrition and fitness as well.
Well, that's where I wanted to go next. Is I think that one of the things that accelerated through that period is like I just have to say the craziest thing, and then people will believe me.
Yeah.
And so you get to this like, we just saw people die. We saw division. How long are you going to live your life the way you're living your life? Give it all up and start over here. And we talked about this, like people quitting a job that they love because somebody convinced them that it's more virtuous to be an entrepreneur. And anyone who is an entrepreneur full-time, we'll get to your part-time entrepreneurship in a moment, knows like it can be brutal.
Yeah.
It's not sunshine and rainbows. And most people I know who set out to be entrepreneurs are really better off being intrapreneurs. And then maybe having something
like a solopreneur when
no,
you say
intrapreneur, meaning like being really influential within a company aligned with your values. And then maybe having some side stuff that tickles a passion. Because the thing is this, like, one of the things that I've learned is the thing I need to most avoid is it's exciting to think about building another business that generates a few $1 million a year. Because I know how to do that. I have a skill set that can go from 0 to $3 million. And I'm not saying it would be like this. I'm saying I know the formula.
Yeah.
But all that does is get me to the same problems I have today at the company I operate today that I haven't figured out yet. So what's the point? Now I have two sets of the same problems?
Yeah.
I could just solve the problems I have today and go there. That's not for everybody.
No. It's that excitement aspect is always exciting, kind of a thing. But it seems like just from our conversation stuff, you are in that place where you're excited to really solve a problem and figure that stuff out. And when you're passionate, like you just said about having a side thing that you're passionate about, when you're passionate about something, there's going to be those hard parts.
Yeah.
And you're okay with those hard parts because you're passionate about it. And it's never going to be this smooth one-way track with anything. All this stuff is analogous with nutrition and fitness and training and body transformation and mindset shifts and all that kind of stuff. But I think people do absolutely, when it comes to the business things and trying to start a business, the excitement gets them going and they don't realize what really there is that is awful. And if you're not super passionate about learning through the process, just like with fitness, if you're not passionate about learning through it and being curious with it, then you're going to quit immediately. As soon as you don't get the result you wanted. You have to be unendingly curious.
Well, this is I think, by the way, if you turn the knob on the other side of that, it might tighten it so you don't have to hold it the whole time. Although
this knob is the drag knob.
Well, then
That
maybe
one's tight.
I don't know. You know what? in some ways, I'm enjoying watching you hold it the whole time.
I'm just letting it prop on my hand like the thinker.
Yeah. Okay.
But
microphone's your thinker. Got it. So what I find interesting about what you're describing there is this. I think it's just a human psyche thing. Like, I like the exciting thing. Okay, so I like the exciting. The eye is proverbial. I like it, literally, and we are all eye. We all like the exciting thing. If you're the person listening who's like, not me, well, fuck you. You're the one. Okay. The new diet, the new workout plan, the new business, the new relationship, the new girlfriend, like all the new. And then 10 years later, you look and you're like, fuck, I didn't get anywhere.
Yeah.
I see that all the time. Like you were mentioning earlier, so somebody asks you, what do I got to do to change my fitness? And then you describe it. And the first response is,
yeah, but.
Right. Why? Why is that a thing?
It's that cognitive dissonance of thinking there is some missing secret. That there's just one thing that they're missing, this simple switch that's going to be flipped. And there's not. And that's what as when you were saying something before, I'm thinking, how do we change this narrative? How do we get the masses to understand that it is a slow, arduous process, depending on how far off you were from where you want to be?
I think no matter how far off you are, it's a slow process. Like the last 5 pounds are the hardest 5 pounds to lose if you're trying to lose weight.
But it's like you see it in all. Hit the link in my bio and I'll show you how to become a multimillionaire drop shipper through Amazon.
Right.
And we're all falling for these things. Why can't people get it through their thick skull that it's not like that? And the chances of that are just so slim. It could be for you. It could have happened. You know, you could have done 75 hard and actually stuck with some of those principles afterwards and found a balance and maintained a weight loss. It's just not the norm.
Right.
For people that are doing that.
Right.
You could have done Whole 30 and then slowly brought stuff in like you're supposed to instead of just like close the book and walk away, after 30 days. How does that narrative change? Is it just attempting to continue to, spread that message and hope?
The hard thing, I was discussing this with somebody recently. It's a marketing game that you and I are on the same side of. We are significantly out-levered by the powers that want it to be different, right? So I'll share what I think the answer is in a second, but I want to lay out what I mean by that. Insurance companies have an 80-20 rule. I don't know if you know about the 80-20 rule. I
do, yeah.
So for people who don't know, basically what that means is they're only allowed to keep 20% of the money that they bill to their members, which means if we bring down health insurance costs, they bring down profits. They're always going to bill 20% more than what they pay out for medical. And it's just, we're going to foot the bill. So they want those costs to be high, not low. Well, how do we make sure that those costs stay high? Well, pharma can charge more for their drugs. More people can need their drugs. How do we make sure more people need drugs? Well, we make sure that the education system is set up in such a way that people are taught to just follow instruction and authority. Well, how does that happen? Well, the bell system, move from class to class, homework, sit there, shut up, do your thing.
Yep.
Well, how do we make sure people are fat? Well, we make sure that the food-like substance that they're eating in schools are food-like substances and not foods. We don't teach them about any of that stuff. And then we make sure that everybody thinks that rich people are bad people. And then there's these two societies, like the bad people, the good people, the fat people, the healthy people. And the marketing dollars for that, one of my favorite comics of all time is George Carlin.
Yeah.
And I don't even think he's that funny, if I'm being honest.
It's the knowledge bombs that he is dropping.
Yes.
Nobody can match that.
He's like Colin Quinn on steroids for me, if you're into comedy. But he talked one time about there's no need for a conspiracy theory when everybody's incentives are aligned. They don't have to sit in a room and be like, let's do this. It's just, oh, that works. And then all of a sudden you have a different system. Yeah. So that's the problem. How do we overcome it? I think it starts where you are, man, in the schools with the teachers who didn't sign up to indoctrinate students to a life of the mediocrity that we're pursuing as a country right now. We need teachers to stay within their job and teach people how to be people, not just teach the curriculum and move them on to the next teacher. And then we need to take responsibility for ourselves. That's where I think it happens.
It's awful because my son is in public school. I hate school. I hate schooling. I love education. I love learning. I have 2 master's degrees. I always am getting new certifications.
You never know.
You never know. I try to talk as dumb as possible. If you listen to our podcast,
the other side
I sound much dumber. But I have degrees, so it automatically makes me smarter. Not really. I love education. I love learning. And learning, the curiosity has been absolutely taken out of public school.
Yep.
I mean, these kids are going into class, even if there's a class that they're interested in, and they're diving into something that they really like. Bell rings. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Let's cut off that interest and send you somewhere you don't want to be.
Yeah.
And even the students, I teach all seniors, and when they tell me what they're going to school for, or why? Mm-hmm. I'm going to school for business. Why? I want to start a business one day. Why go to school? And I'm challenging them about like going to college because that's what they're told they need.
And business isn't going to teach you how to start a business.
Correct. And they're like, well, because that's, so I know how to run a business. I go, I own 2 businesses. Mm-hmm. I never went to business school. Mm-hmm. Like, you'll figure it out. Think of any super rich business owner. Most of them didn't probably finish college.
They definitely didn't go to business school.
They definitely didn't go to business school.
The business school is the track to CEO one day.
Yeah.
It's not the track to ownership.
Yeah. And it's this, I am having those conversations a lot with students. You can see that they just don't have a vision for their own life.
Do you ever get pushback from their parents?
Shockingly, no. I'm waiting to get fired one day for the things that I mean, there's no doubt about it. I've said wildly inappropriate things.
Like what?
Just to get their attention.
Like what? I mean, you said it to a kid. You can say it on a podcast. No?
I'll get judged by all these adults. You don't understand. I'll absolutely have threatened suicide in front of the whole class.
like I will kill myself if you do that?
Yeah, it's like, oh my God. One of these days I'm going to come in with a gun. I'm going to blow my brains out in front of you just so that 30 people are traumatized because of the way. And it gets their attention.
Right.
And that's the reason I'm saying something potentially awful. And I know that it can trigger potentially some bad thoughts for kids and all that. That's the first example that might come to my mind. I tend to use extreme examples, whether it's heavy drug use, death, suicide, whatever it might be, to get their attention because their attention is so gone. And this is like a snap to get their attention back. Yep. And then this is the analogy of this point.
It's marketing
that I'm trying
in
to
person.
Make. Yeah. So I'll absolutely say extreme. And some kids get it. Some kids don't. That's fine. I'm okay with it. Most seem to understand my sarcasm with what I'm saying. Most of them seem to understand the point. I've had some nice letters at the end of the year from some seniors that are like, I love when you would do or say this, and not everybody gets it, but I always appreciate it when you make those jokes to kind of like snap everybody back into place. But even that, like that sense of humor is gone.
Right.
Everybody is taught to be triggered by something. You should be offended by something, looking for stuff to be offended by, and then the schools support that stuff. They back the person who's the most offended. They absolutely, if a parent complains enough, the parents get in the way. I mean, a kid will get a detention for something the parent call. He's not going to detention. And like the schools will back down. So what are we teaching these kids? It's terrible.
Well, that's one of the reasons that Kim stopped teaching.
Yeah.
Like she was a teacher. My wife was a teacher. She had a great job. She made 6 figures plus. For people who don't know, like if you're in New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, the tri-state, teaching is a great job.
Yeah.
It is not listen, pay him as much as we need to pay him. But there's no one playing a small violin for teachers making 6 figures plus top tier health benefits.
Yeah. I do hate when teachers, especially in Jersey, will complain about the pay. I'm like, shut up. Like, you don't even know what it's like to be fired for job performance. You know, like you get in the business world, you don't hit your numbers, you're done. Like, you got to basically sell drugs or hook up with a kid to get fired in a public school system.
Right.
You know, if they really don't like you, it takes years to fire a teacher for performance-related issue. It doesn't just happen like that. They don't even realize the security that they have in their jobs, and then they complain about the pay. I'm like, you're basically making six figures at the top of the scale.
Right.
With a pension, that's pretty good if you stay all the years.
And retirement.
And retirement, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that stuff just drives me nuts. However, huge decline in respect for teachers. So I understand that. An increase in just stupid paperwork, which is just starts to wear on them, and then administration or parents just not having their back. That's the kind of stuff that starts to wear on the teacher.
What's so interesting about that kind of stuff, though, is I feel like the silent majority want their schools to be schools again.
Yeah. I think the pendulum will swing back.
I think it's starting to swing back. I think the fact that like we were talking earlier about why we think certain things, right? And I did a podcast on here speaking to myself as like a message to me for later, that I wouldn't have done 2 years ago, and should have, by the way, but wouldn't have, because I was like, well, what if people find these things out about me? Yeah. Like, what if people know I had a good childhood?
Yeah.
What if people know I didn't need for anything when I was young? What if people know, like, I got my first business off the ground because friends and family invested and I failed, and they didn't get their money back? Like, I don't have a fucking sob story about my father not being around or my mother not being around. And so am I less than because I don't? But I think that now, like, just authenticity cuts through. And I'm like, no, that's who I was. And like, there are people who had that and didn't do anything with it. And there are people who didn't have it who want to learn what it was like to have it so that they can give it to their kids. Just be yourself. Yeah. And I think that there was a time we were in like probably a 3-year window, 2.5 year window there, where it was really difficult to be yourself. And I think school districts went through that too.
Yeah, school districts meaning in what way?
Superintendent is the top of the school district, but they're not the top of the school district. It's the people who appoint the superintendent and all of that. But if my kid went to school and was getting bad grades, I want the school to fail my kid. I want them to tell me first. Yeah. But if the kid doesn't change, I want that kid to fail. And I think that parents today mostly want that. But the parents who don't are more vocal. And I think that school districts are starting to realize.
Well, also, they're financially incentivized to have better scores on tests.
Sure.
So they're doing everything they can to get this person's test scores up because school districts are financially incentivized to perform better. No child left behind, I'm assuming is where all that stuff started. So maybe that's a part of it. But the amount of people that you'll see as a senior in high school who they're supposed to fail and magically.
Right.
It's like, just get them out of here. And I get torn. Sometimes I'm like, screw them. And sometimes I'm like, get them out of here. Like, this degree means nothing.
Right.
At the end of the day.
Well, but I don't think it's about the degree, though. I think it's about the kid learning, like, hey, you don't like this stuff. Yeah. But you're perfectly capable of doing it. So the fact that you choose not to do this, you're going to run into this problem everywhere in your life.
Well, I said probably over 10 years ago when the whole no place for hate, stop bullying. The whole message was that other people are responsible for your feelings. We're going to end bullying. There is no place for hate. All that. We never taught kids how to be resilient or how to handle a bully. That conversation never existed.
Right.
That's where I saw a huge decline in self-responsibility and resilience in any way, shape, or form. I mean, Chris Rock said it. Bullies do half the job of public education. Teachers do the other half. Right. You know, so not obviously we don't support bullying, but it's going to happen.
Well, there's something to be learned for the bully and the bullied.
Both.
Like, why are you bullying kids? And then why are you allowing yourself to be bullied? Both of those things are happening. Like, we teach our kids in our house, like, if someone is bullying you, do not go tell the teacher. I don't think any kid wants to go tell the teacher. I think every kid wants to be out of that situation. One of the most valuable things that happened for me in my life was getting bullied. And then having my parents basically be like, what are you going to do about it? Yeah. Like, shit. I guess something. And I've told the story on the podcast, so I don't need to belabor it again. But like, there was a real lesson in that. And if it didn't happen, I'm not who I am today. I'm somebody different. I don't know who that is. Maybe it's better. Maybe it's worse. Maybe it's just totally different. But the point that I'm making there is what you're speaking to there is what I would like more teachers to do. I would like someone to come to the teacher and say, he's bullying me. And the teacher say, why?
I had a kid years ago, autistic, somewhere on the spectrum. We were talking about that it's so difficult. It's such a wide spectrum. But he would interject himself into conversations with other kids. The other kids would then talk trash to him. He would start yelling back at them. It'd become this thing. I had a conversation with him. He's like, I was bullied when I was in elementary school, and I'm just never going to let somebody talk to me like that. And he was always standing up for himself.
So he had some social wherewithal, but not enough to understand why this stuff was happening.
Yes. And I said, you understand that you're defending yourself because you interjected in their conversation and started chiming in. They were not talking to you. And I see this all the time. It's other people having a conversation. You jump in with some commentary. If it's about sports or whatever it is. They talk shit to you back, and then you defend yourself. You have to stop interjecting in other people's conversations. I understand that you were bullied then, but they're not going after you. They're not bullying you right now. You're starting this.
Right. They're defending
conflict.
Their conversation.
Yes. And you could see this light bulb went off for him.
Good for him.
Like he had that look. Yeah, you're right. He was on guard so much from what happened to him when he was in elementary school. And that's how he was living his life. But I don't know how often those conversations are happening versus the parent that just or the teacher that's just like, guys, stop talking to Michael this way.
Right. Well, because
we have to defend the weak.
This is what happens in our house. Our oldest she interjects. She's the police officer of the house sometimes. And I love her. Like you met her today. She's a great kid. She's smart. And she's trying to keep everybody safe and happy. Kid jumps on the couch. Stop jumping on the couch. It's not your job to stop them from jumping on the couch. Yeah. Just like you're always on team sister, no matter what. Yeah. I would rather you lie to me to protect your sister than come tell me the truth so your sister gets in trouble.
It's so funny because I've said the same stuff. Like lying is a skill. It's like some of these kids, it's where they get to have some creativity in their brain and all that. And I'm like, if my son's going to lie to me about something, I'm not necessarily mad. Depends on what it is. Right. You want to get a little creative, commit to the lie. You got to really convince me. Like this is it. You got to convince me of this. I'll start asking questions. I'll poke holes in his story. And it'll finally admit that he was lying. I'm like, you got to get better. You got to get better at these stories, man. I don't know if that's wrong or right as a parent to like help your kid lie better. But
I think it depends. Like our youngest will just lie with a straight face.
Sociopath. I like that.
Dude, you met her too in her wedding dress with her red glitter shoes. She will just tell you like, I didn't have chocolate milk today. Like I poured you chocolate milk last night and your cup is empty. Maybe one of my sisters drank it. Like, I don't think one of your sisters drank it.
One of them must have.
Then she'll be like, I think they did. And I'll say, and I go to both of her sisters. Did you drink your sister's chocolate milk? No. I'm like, that was the truthful response. I know your sister's response is like, neither of them drank your chocolate milk. She's like, maybe mom drank it. Like, I'm pretty sure.
For all I know, you drank it, Dad.
Yeah.
Why are you coming at me
But
like
that's
this?
what she does.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I like that. Because she'll be like, you don't trust me?
Yeah.
I'm like, you're 4.
I trust you to shit yourself.
Trust is contextual. But what you're saying there is like, when they get into fights, she'll come out, that one especially. She hit me. I'm like, okay, why do you think she hit you? And I don't know if it was justified or not, but I want to get what really happened. Yeah. I don't want to just go in there and say, don't hit your sister. I remember growing up, my cousin was the worst at video games. And he would go downstairs after he lost and tell my uncle, they won't let me play. And then my uncle would come up and be like, let him play. And I'm like, he just did. He lost. It's like a round robin. Like, he's out. And you're like, you guys aren't treating him fairly. Like, we're treating him exactly fairly.
Yeah.
I never want that for our kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I see the same stuff with the way that I'm raising my son. Mm-hmm. Those conversations. I think it's great.
So how does that happen more? Why don't teachers do that more often? Are they afraid? Are they just lazy?
I don't know. I don't know what goes on in different classrooms.
Right.
So I'm sure there's some assumptions that
But
I make.
do you get side eyes from teachers? Like, I feel like you're the teacher who you don't listen to podcasts because you have a 7-minute commute to work and then you work all day. There was a podcast that Joe Rogan did with a guy who's Dr. something. His name I don't remember, but he's openly does drugs, like heroin, coke, all of it. Like he's a professor at some big time college. I don't remember the one, but he's like, look, I'll use heroin recreationally, and I just know how much to take. I know where I'm getting it. By the way, not advocating for any of that stuff. I don't know how to get it or how to use it, and I never have. But his thing was, there's just an over-stigmatization of it. And he's the guy who all the other teachers look at and they're like, I'm not sure if you can do that. But tell me more.
Yeah.
I feel like that's you minus the heroin.
Are you sure?
No, I'm
minus
not.
there.
I'm not.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've become less social with the people that I work with. It's very rare that I'm getting together with people that I work with. Being in the gym, for the most part, we're on the outside of the building. I park my car outside of the gym. I'm rarely walking through the halls. I've definitely I know that teachers have talked shit on me, or students heard, and then they come back and tell me.
Right.
So I'm fully aware of that.
What's the what's something that a teacher would say about you?
Well, the last thing was about me not being vaccinated. That was one of the last things, and kid came and told me, like, they were like, yeah, him and his beliefs or whatever. Because I'm on social media. I'm sure plenty of them follow me. Never like anything, but sure to see some of the things that I post. And I was vocal.
Lurkers.
Yeah, lurkers. And I was vocal over that time. And as a public school teacher, being vocal against what every school was doing or the positions that they had. Because, again, it's not against the school. It's coming from the state down. And they were paid to follow the rules. If they didn't, they had money taken from them. So they didn't like that. They thought I was a psycho. All that stuff. Years ago, it might be more along the lines of he's just, the kids just like him. He doesn't make them do anything type of a thing, which would be a typical response if students like somebody that they don't do anything.
Right.
Or whatever it might be. But nothing else I can think specifically outside of that.
What I think is really interesting about he doesn't make them do anything is I had a mentor who was formative for me. And one of the things he said is he's like, you will know that you are being successful when you're not sure what you're supposed to do. And he's like, the way that you think and the way that you function, your time is best served in vision. Mm-hmm. What that means is that there are going to be some days that you show up to the office with nothing on your schedule. You sit in your chair and you think.
Yeah.
And you get up and you go for a walk. And you come back and you think again. Then you write something down. And then you think again. And you go home.
And after years of go, that's a weird feeling.
Right.
Sure.
Well, I was in maintenance mode. I was in treating patients and coaching classes and personal training. And he's like, you're wired to be visionary. And when you get there, people won't understand. Mm-hmm. It's like most people don't operate that way. Yep. But what it sounds like to me is the way that you're teaching these kids gives them the opportunity to do that. In other words, he's not teaching them what to do or telling them what to, you're like, no, I'm telling them where to look and allowing them to decide what to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like you don't see a lot in schools. Again, this is just what I'm gathering from things that I hear because I'm not in these classrooms.
Right.
You're allowed this perspective. I don't know how much we're teaching them to have conversations and question themselves and think of the other side of things and all of that. And I really do enjoy when I am in the health classroom. We have a wide curriculum of what we can teach. I spend very little time on the sex ed stuff.
Right.
You know, it's like at this point, I'm not going over anatomy.
Right.
We had this stuff in 8th grade, 10th grade. We're not doing this. You know, I'm not going to show you pictures of every STD.
Right.
Like, you want the STD unit? If it burns, itches, and is rashy, go to a doctor.
Right.
Like, we don't need to know every single one and know if it's bacterial or viral.
I'm not showing you the anatomy because in college you're going to forget it anyway. And when you're married, you're going to have to remind yourself, I need to learn this again. Otherwise my marriage is going to fall apart.
Yeah. Like, I get into like the real things that might actually affect them a little bit later in life, talk about in vitro and things like that in terms of the sex ed stuff, but have a lot more conversations about life. Try to let them to explore life and really question what path they're following and why they're following it. Is it for your parents or is it for you? And these conversations hopefully happen organically. I could probably do a better job of organizing some of those thoughts, but I do like to see the conversation, and it's great when you have a class that really does buy in, and they're all in on these conversations.
Do you teach them how to communicate with their parents at all? Because one of the things I imagine that could be problematic from that is, as a student, I'm like, you know what, maybe I am doing all this for my parents. I'm not studying anymore. And then their parents are like, what happened to your grades? And I'm like, those were never for me. Like
I do when it comes to that kind of stuff, because I might say, drop out. If you don't need school, drop out. They're like, well, I can't. Why? So I will go enough into the conversation.
When you say drop out,
I'll say drop out.
Do you mean for them to drop out?
Drop out. I'll say it seriously because I know where the conversation is going to go. Well, I can't. Why? Because my parents won't let me. Why? What do you mean? Just drop out. And, well, no. Because, like, they'll kill me or they'll kick me out, whatever they might say. Okay, so what do you want? You want a roof over your head, right? Okay. You don't want your parents to be pissed at you right now, and you want everything that they provide for you right now, and you're not in a place to provide those things for yourself right now. So you do want school. You do want to finish because you want what you finishing provides for you right now. You don't have any other options, kind of a thing. And then to get them to kind of understand that, like, no, not because they're going around school, this sucks, everything sucks, I don't want to be here, and they're focusing so much on the negative. They're not getting anything out of it. You are getting something out of it. Your parents aren't riding your ass right now. You got a place to live, you're getting food, you got clothes, all that kind of stuff. You got a car, whatever. So if they can start to understand that, cool. Now, what do you want after that? What do you want after that? It's important to be thinking about that. And then what's the path to actually get there?
What's interesting about that is that sounds like a really good example of meeting the kids where they truly are.
You're like, not doing this to please them. You're doing it because you want this stuff that they're providing for you right now.
Well, it's getting to the real want.
Yeah.
You're not saying to them, cool, you're 17. You don't even know what you want.
I hate that conversation.
But that's
what people say.
Right. And that's why I think it's cool that you say to them, like, what you really want, it sounds like, is a roof over your head and parents who you love who are not on your back. Well, how do you get that? You go to school. So you want school.
Yeah.
It's like there's things that we do that we don't want to do so that we can have the things that we really want. I talk about it as compromise. The idea of the compromise would be, I'm not going to go to school and I'm going to give up those things when those things are the things that you really want. And school is the thing that you need to do in order to get it. You're not willing to compromise. Like, we should stop compromising on the things we really want because of the things that make it difficult to achieve them in the moment.
Yeah. Because most of these people that want to drop out, they don't have a plan.
No.
Like, if you have a legit plan, map that out. Talk to your parents about it.
Right.
If you really don't want to go to college, map it out. Talk to your parents about it. You know, this is something that you need to be doing. Otherwise, at what point do you stop trying to please your parents?
Well, I think another way to think about that would be to tell your parents, I really don't want to go to college. And here are the reasons why. And I don't know what to do. But I know what I want to avoid doing. And it might be a really difficult conversation for a kid to have, but I think that when you give them the permission to have that conversation, it's at least liberating for them.
Yeah. Like, create it like a business plan.
So why do you coach nutrition? Seriously, like you own a rental property, you have a driving school, you don't need, your wife has a good job too, she's a guidance counselor. You don't need the extra money or hassle that come from telling people you don't need to put that in your mouth today.
Yeah.
Why do you do it?
It goes back to being a teacher, seeing kids struggle with body image, confidence, all of that, which is directly related to the way they're treating their bodies through food and lack of exercise, pseudo food and lack of exercise. So
food like substances.
Food like substances. So there'd be a lot of conversations whenever I taught health, because I was just into this stuff about how they can treat themselves better. I started going to a CrossFit gym, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, and learned about nutrition coaching through that. One of the owners there was a nutrition coach for a company. Understood that, having these conversations in
What
class.
gym was it?
A CrossFit off the grid in South Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah. He worked for Stronger You.
Okay.
Like the whole. So learned about this. I'm like, oh, this is like a thing. I never heard about like nutrition coaching before. This is maybe 10 years ago. I'm having conversations in class with students where they're saying, we should have a class on this.
They're right.
Yes. So I'm looking at our curriculum. We have like advanced placement pottery, advanced culinary, like every subject under the sun, but nothing for people who want to get into the health and fitness space or nutrition space. So I proposed a course 7-8 years ago to the school in nutrition and kinesiology. That would be an elective for seniors, people who maybe want to learn more about it, either personally or because they're interested in this as a potential career path. It gets approved. I have to write a curriculum. I have like 8 months to write this curriculum.
That's cool that the school did that.
Yeah. And they were on board because also they wanted to throw the word careers in there. This was at the time where we have to be preparing kids for careers. Right. So the class was called Careers in Fitness. Horrible title. Like, I hate the title. I'm like, I want it to be like Nutrition and Applied Kinesiology.
Right. Because you might not want a career in this. You might just want to learn this.
And it's not just fitness. Like, you're downplaying what fitness, right. Careers in fitness. Right. Like, we're just going to run around and personal train and blah, blah, blah.
8 sets of 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I immediately enrolled in a master's program to go back to school. I'm like, I'm not going to write a curriculum based on my Google knowledge and, being a personal trainer when I was 21, 22 and all that. And with now most master's programs, they're fairly accelerated. I knew I could knock out 2 classes at a time and get through like 4 classes before I even have to really dive into writing this curriculum. And I tend to be a last minute procrastinator with stuff. I'm not going to spend 6 months writing a curriculum. I'm going to do it in a handful of days. Yeah, a week. I mean, I had a year to write my master's, like whatever thesis paper thing, whatever it's called. I did it in the last 2 weeks.
We have a lot of similarities.
Yeah, I need to be pressed up against the wall with stuff. I'm going to start a business and then figure it out from there. Yep. We talked about that earlier. So took a bunch of classes, a lot of the basic level stuff with nutrition and kinesiology. I'm like, all right, cool. This is how I can formulate this class. Start teaching the class. Like 45 plus kids. I end up having 2 sections of it, and I'm teaching this class. While teaching, the first half of the year is all nutrition. I'm explaining to them that this is a career that you could be in. You could be a nutrition coach. Get served. If you really understand, you really care about people, and you really want to help them, you can be a nutrition coach. Like, whatever. And they're not really getting it because it's not a common thing 7-8 years ago.
Especially not amongst 17-year-olds.
Yeah. Like, they all heard personal trainers, but not nutrition coach. So I started a nutrition coaching business. I'm like, I'm going to show them how to do that. Also, I was wrapping up my master's. At that point, I got it done maybe like a year and a half or so. So a little bit later, I ended up using that as like one of my final projects for a master's in kinesiology and in nutrition. Anyway, so I start this, and I just start doing the nutrition coaching. It really came from this root of seeing kids, but also seeing plenty of adults always battling the New Year's resolutions, always, I got to get my shit together, and always having those conversations, just people around me in my life. My brother always struggling with his weight and doing something extreme and then gaining it all back and all of that. So that's why I got into it. I wanted to be able to help people. I wanted to shoot it straight with them. Started doing seminars at gyms, and just was reaching out to every gym I could in the area and doing seminars, and started getting clients. At a certain point, and I had no idea what I was doing. At a certain point, I had like 55 clients, no systems.
Right.
Like forgetting about people. It was terrible.
Oh, yeah, I owe you a program.
Yeah, it's like I haven't talked to you in a month, and I'm like, where you been?
Right. I was waiting for your call.
I couldn't keep going. But I see you haven't filled out your spreadsheet, and it was terrible, but that was it. And then have just been doing it since, have much better systems in place with how I do things. And over the years with even social media and Instagram, much less nutrition education. I'm putting all mindset stuff. The longer I've been working with people, it's all this mindset stuff, these conversations that we're having with ourselves, these people that are in the practice of waiting to get started, people that are just waiting for themselves to fail because they've identified themselves as a failure. I can't ever do this. Every time I tried in the past, it didn't work. So that's where I think, which goes back to your earlier point of this mental health crisis, that's where I think we need most of the conversations around our self-identity. I don't even want to say self-talk, that's an aspect of it, but self-identity, learning how to show up for ourselves, being more task-oriented, action-oriented than goal-oriented. It's good to have a goal, but every day if you have actions that your rules for your life, you show up for them, you've reached the goal, versus I'm nothing until I lost the 20 pounds.
Right.
I'm worthless until I lost the 20 pounds.
Dude, I was on a hike in Sedona with my wife, and we were climbing down from a place called Devil's Bridge. And it's a long, we hiked 11 miles that day. And people kept on asking, how far are we from it? How far are we from it? How far are we from it? And finally I was like, no, I'm not just going to say about an hour again. I just said to somebody, how far from what? And they're like, from the bridge. I was like, the bridge? About an hour. But can I ask you something? I'm like, sure. I was like, how long have you been hiking here? Like, oh, a couple of hours so far. Because we took the long road and there's a shorter way to get there. They were on the shorter one. I'm like, have you stopped to look around? They were like, what do you mean? I was like, I would love, like, seriously, have you stopped hiking and just turned your body backwards? It's something, and I realized in the moment, I'm like, I'm causing a lot of conflict for this person. I don't mean to cause a lot of conflict for them. So I eased it, and I was like, I actually did this, and it was amazing. Like, I don't hike a lot, and so doing this was really cool for me. Stop for a second and just turn around. Like, look backwards. They look backwards on this vast valley that you never would see if you didn't turn around. Yeah. And I was like, I was just at the top. That's a better view. And you're already there.
Yeah. Yes.
It's
years ago, and I've heard other people say it as well. It was, to me, an original thought when I said it. Mm-hmm. If you make the process the goal,
yes,
then you've already reached the goal, kind of a thing. And I hiked the Manitou Incline, Colorado. It's just a mile straight up of steps. It was like an old railroad
That's cool.
thing where they would bring people up and you see the view from the top. And people do it. It's a wild, check out the incline on YouTube. You'll see like this history of it and whatever. It's just steps. You're just walking up these steps. It's far. I'm going, my goal here is to just not stop. Mm-hmm. And I'm climbing up it. You think it's the top. This guy's like, that's not the top. I'm like, that's the fucking top. I've been looking at it the whole time. He's like, it's a false stop. He's like, it's your first time? I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, this guy's fucking with me. Mm-hmm. I get up to that top. He wasn't fucking with me. I saw like another third of the way to go.
Right.
Climb up the whole thing. Like, just don't stop. I get to this point where I'm like, if this was the last step, this is literally the conversation I'm having in my head. If this was the last step, could I take this? Yeah, it's just the last step. Well, if this was the last step, could you do it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just didn't want to stop. I didn't want to sit and take a break. And it was that analogy of the same thing with somebody's transformation of fitness, nutrition. Just this next meal, just this one decision. Can you do this one thing? And when I got to the top, I never take my camera out and like film myself in front of people. I always feel weird, but at the top of this, you're like delirious. I think I might have smoked a little weed at the bottom of the the trail when it was Colorado, and I'm like, the view sucked as far as I was concerned. I'm like, this view wasn't even that great. And I get up there, and I'm like, the view is not worth the climb, but the climb was worth the climb.
Right.
And like you see this guy laughing behind me as I'm saying it. The climb was worth the fucking climb. Like that's what it's all about. The process of it, enjoying the process of it as much as you can, exactly like you just said. I mean, you're missing out on so much when all you're looking at is the goal.
I like that as like an encapsulated, like one of like, it's the kind of thing that like you write on a piece of wood and you hang it on a wall somewhere. The view isn't always worth the climb, but the climb is always worth the climb.
Yeah, yeah,
it's cool. What comes to mind for me as you describe that is thinking in 5-year chunks instead of 6-month or 1-year chunks. Because I find that it's so much more likely that you achieve what you're trying to do over a 5-year period than that you don't if you're trying to achieve the same thing the whole time. And it's so much less likely that you achieve anything in 5 years if you're focused on 60-day, 8-week, 6-week, whatever chunks of time. When you're working with a nutrition client, one of the things I've talked to Joel Cavanero, Sam Miller, Christy May Campbell, like you name your nutrition coach, I've asked them this. Oh,
crap.
Yeah. It feels to me, fitness too, but like nutrition especially, is a manufactured profession that is completely irrelevant, if not for a mental health crisis and a food marketing industry that makes it difficult for us to know what is food, when do I want it, what do I want from it, how do I get it? What do you think of that?
I think every good nutrition coach that I know wishes that this was not even a viable job.
Right.
It's absurd.
Mm-hmm.
I've also said from the beginning, it's always more than nutrition. It's always more than food.
Right.
There's so much more to it. I'm not just, you need 25 more grams of carbs, drink some apple juice. You know, it's the gateway to a new identity for someone. I don't know if that even comes close to answering or attempting to answer.
No, it does.
What you're saying.
You're saying yes.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I struggle with is I feel the same way about what we do at Active Life. Like there are nutrition coaches and macro calculators out there who will charge you for access to the calculator just to make sure you're hitting your numbers.
Yeah.
Right? Fine. Fine. I'm not going to go down that road. I think most of fitness is that. Most of fitness is reps, sets, and like grind it out. Show up. Like you understand what I mean when I say this. So for a long time I was like, Active Life is more than fitness. It's fitness too. But it's not we're not a fitness company. And what I find is that it makes it difficult for people to, like, people aren't thinking about a new identity when they come to you for nutrition. And they're not thinking about a new identity when they come to us to get out of pain without going to the doctor, or giving up their active lifestyle, or when they're coming to us to teach them how to make more money and grow a coaching business that they can love working in. And so I've gotten lost in the not talking about the basic of where their mind is, because it's uninspiring to me to talk about, like, here's how you get out of shoulder pain, or here's how you grow a coaching business. Because the answer to both is you become somebody who never would have had these problems in the first place. How do you stay excited to talk about nutrition, to get people to come to you for nutrition, when you know it's not the thing?
Because I know that when they do start to learn that food doesn't control them, like, that gets exciting for me. When I see clients talking about, hey, I ended up having this junk and I didn't beat myself up over it. You know, didn't go down this guilt shame spiral. So I know that it's that gateway. I have who do you want to actually be? I can't finish a sentence. How many times I'm saying, what do you really want? These people, they want this body, but they want to party every weekend. Like, what do you really want? And try to push that question. I know it's the gateway to other stuff. That's why I'm able to still be excited about it. I know the power and the lessons that you learn in the weight room. I know the power and the lessons you learn in the kitchen when you start to feed and fuel yourself better. So when you get that feedback from people, like their energy, their sleep, their performance, whatever it might be, that's what keeps me excited about it.
That's a helpful thought. It doesn't solve my problem, but it's a helpful thought.
Which problem?
That I'm not excited to talk about the shit that we like, that people are thinking about that makes them want to enroll with us. Because so here's an example. Yeah. We had someone, Natalie, if you're listening, I appreciate this from you. She wrote a comment in our Slack channel for clients, and it's on our website now, that said, if I knew that Active Life was more of a personal development program than it was a coaching business development program, I never would have signed up. And I'm so happy that I did, because both are better now. That's all I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about what you should charge, or like how to get a client with your marketing, or how many, like, why this exercise is actually good for you and this exercise is less good for you than you think. That is so boring to me, but it's the thing that gets somebody's attention and makes them want to come and learn from us. Mm-hmm. That's hard for me.
To cut through right to what you really want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to have to, like, BS and sugarcoat.
No.
To get them in the door, knowing that they're going to.
Correct.
Yes.
It feels bait and switchy.
Yeah.
And it feels like it minimizes what we do. Like when I speak on a stage, are you going to be at the Real Coaches Summit?
Yeah, man.
I wasn't sure if you were going or not.
I'll be there when the registration table.
Listen, God willing, my wife will either hold off on the baby until I return, or have it in advance of me leaving, and not just do it during the 3 days I'm in Vegas.
She's due during those days?
She's due 10 days later.
Okay.
But when I speak to, like, I know the speakers there are going to be good, because I know Aram and I know that he's looking for real substance. What I want to talk to the people in attendance there about is, who are you?
Yeah.
And why are you afraid to show up as that?
Mm-hmm.
And what's the real reason you're afraid to show up as that? And my belief around the talk I'm going to give is that they are going to walk out of that talk with more opportunity to make money than any talk that teaches them how to make money.
Yeah.
But no one's going to come to that talk unless they believe it's going to help them make more money, because that's where they think they need to go. And I'm not.
Yeah. At this one, I think you might have more people.
You know what I'm describing.
I know what you're saying.
Like, take the event name out of it. I'm speaking at another event later in the year.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's more of a business style one, you just get a catchy title where you throw the word authenticity.
Yeah, well, like I remember
authenticity sells.
When I was looking for that mentor, I had worked with two prior, and they both taught me all the business stuff that he never did. Yeah. But what they taught me never worked. What he taught me did. And I ended up doing the things that they taught me as a result of the things that he taught me.
Yeah. A lot of the business strategies, if they're not vibing with your values, then I'm instantly checking out. When I hear these business people that are trying to help with your business talk about these things, I'm like, I'm not doing that shitty stuff.
Right.
You know, but that's the fortunate part about having a full-time job, is that I'm not like, oh crap, I need to make this money so that I can support my lifestyle because this is my only source of income. So I still don't think, even if I was in that place, that it would sit well with me to do some of the scummy things.
Well, some of the stuff isn't even scammy or scummy. It's just like, you're not ready for it. Like, you're not the person, not you.
Yeah. No,
you're not the person who can pull this off and be authentically in pursuit of it. I had a friend here we were talking about earlier who you're also friendly with. And she was telling me that her business mentor told her, like, you're supposed to have a team of people doing these tasks and you should be 70% profit. That's your goal. I'm like, what world is that true in? Like, if you want to create a business where you can focus on the vision, 70% profit is out the window.
I mean, 10% would be, 10 to 30% would be fairly good for a lot of business owners.
I would love to be at 25%. If we can hit 25% profit at Active Life, I would be very, very happy. Mm-hmm. People think it's an online business, so margins just through the roof. And I'm like, well, hold on a second. I want people working in this company who you want to work with.
Yeah.
Not just people who check a box. And I want to pay those people well so that they will work here for a long time and not have to worry about the money, but be able to pursue the meaning. Yeah. And you want to work with that person. Why do you think you need to have a business that profits 70% off of staff that's working full time? It's not. Show me the math.
It's crazy.
It's insane. But the person who says...
And you feel less than right away when you're not hitting those numbers.
100%. But the person who says, we'll help you build a business that profits 70% and has you only focusing on the things you love to do, that person's talk is going to win out if we're choosing which one do I want to go to over who do you need to be so that you never need to hire a business coach again to run the business that you want to run.
Yeah. I could see... Absolutely.
I can't.
The average person going into these things, they think that there's some bottleneck in their business and that they need those.
I'm great. I'm doing everything right. There's just got to be one thing that I need to change. And
just the same thing we talk about with nutrition, fitness, transformation, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I could talk to you about this
forever. Just a catchy title that combines the two.
We'll come up with it.
Yeah.
We'll come up with it on the drive home. We have 4 minutes.
Plenty of time.
Yeah. Jim, thanks for coming on. Where can people find you?
Instagram, Jimmy Nutrition, easiest way. And then
on Instagram at Jimmy Nutrition.
Jimmy Nutrition. You can call me Jim. And then the podcast, Other Side Lifestyle Podcast, which is on YouTube now. And we have an Instagram page as well at Other Side Lifestyle Podcast.
Thank you. Turn Pro. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Active Life Podcast. Please remember, give us a hand, rate it, review it wherever you listen to shows. We are on a mission to humanize the healthcare industry by professionalizing the fitness industry to empower the individual to live a life unlimited by the way that their body looks, feels, or performs. If you are inspired by that mission and want to jump on the wagon, find us anywhere. Active Life Professional on Instagram, Active Life RX on Instagram. Come to me personally at Dr. Sean Pastuch. We want to welcome you onto the train. We want you to be a part of the mission. We want to offer you the opportunity to pursue this right alongside us. We're inspired by your effort, and we hope to help you in your journey. Turn Pro.